As the Trump administration makes deep cuts to the size of the federal government, we're seeing in real time how much that government reaches into our everyday lives on the farm, in the arts, in the hospital, on the roads. Decades ago, the federal government pulled back from Plattsburgh in a huge way, closing its Air Force base that had been home to thousands of airmen and their families. Today, the base has homes and businesses, but there's a legacy that local officials say the federal government still has a responsibility to maintain. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, June 20th. First up, a National Guard transport bus crashed early this morning on Route 30, about 4 miles south of Malone. According to state officials, 14 members of New York's National Guard were on board. 13 people were transported by ambulance to area hospitals. According to a spokesperson for the State Division of Military and Naval Affairs who spoke with the Malone Telegram, medical evaluations of the National Guard members resulted in a number of non-critical injuries. The troops are assigned to assist with operations at Bear Hill Correctional as a part of an ongoing staffing shortage in state prisons. Yesterday, we previewed Watertown's City Council race in next Tuesday's primary. Today, Glens Falls race for mayor. Both candidates are Democrats, and there are no other contenders, so the primary essentially is the election. Glens Falls mayor has been a Democrat since 2006. This year, incumbent Bill Collins is facing off against Diana Palmer, who served as the city's 3rd Ward councilwoman since 2018. The two diverge over the city's budget process. The New York Public News Network's Aaron Shello-Levine reports.
Mayor Bill Collins was elected to lead the Warren County City in 2021. Before that, he served 2 four-year terms on the Common Council and had worked for the New York State Special Olympics. The Glens Falls native says he's excited to build on the city's momentum.
Glens Falls is in the midst of one of the great economic expansions in our recent memory. Millions of new investments in our downtown, hundreds of new residential units, a vibrant and growing restaurant scene. My goal is to keep this momentum going and expand on it over the next 4 years.
In 2016, Glens Falls received a $10 million downtown revitalization initiative grant from the state. The city also received $12 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds. Collins' campaign boasts the first 0% tax increase in more than 2 decades in 2025's budget. The mayor has been criticized for balance gaps between expected revenues and expenditures, but he says,
the thing is that we run such a tight ship that we've come in under budget every year for the last 3 years that I've been in office. And so we assign some fund balance every year during the budgeting process between the budgeted revenues and the budgeted expenses, but we've never had to use a penny of that. We need to keep it affordable. We need to keep as much burden off the taxpayers as possible. Those are things that are within my and our control.
3rd Ward Councilwoman Diana Palmer is calling for more transparency in the city's budgeting process and wants to oversee it.
Every year, we're going into the budget with a deficit, and then that deficit has grown every year since the mayor has been in office. He's argued that, well, it's okay because, we still have a good fund balance, so it's all working out. I don't know how he cannot understand that we've had $12 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds for the last few years. And so every time we've had expenses that the general fund would have had to pay for, like new trucks, we've had an extra pot of money to go to. Therefore, the fund balance didn't get depleted even though we're spending more than we're bringing in.
As she runs for mayor, Palmer also wants to save money she says is lost through the city's grant applications and consultant fees, adding she'd like to see a more conservative budgeting process.
The mayor has also, at times, tried to steer us into directions that I think are outside of our core responsibilities. For example, he wanted to buy a large private property in the core of our downtown that went for sale, the TD Bank building. He's also wanted to spend money on event coordination that currently Those events are mostly chaired and put on by volunteers in our community, from the business community. So those are things that I don't think that we should be spending government money.
In Saratoga Springs, I'm Aaron Shallow-Levine for the New York Public News Network.
Officials in Plattsburgh say infrastructure at the former Air Force Base there continues to fail, and it's causing unsafe conditions for residents and businesses. They're renewing calls for the federal government to take responsibility for what it left behind. Kara Chapman has more.
Greg Burnell is the highway superintendent of the town of Plattsburgh. He and his team have a routine when storms hit the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base property.
We always send a couple of us out to check after every rain event because sinkholes open up.
Earlier this month, a sinkhole did open up on Idaho Avenue. Burnell says the cause was water infiltrating a storm drain that runs 26 feet under the surface.
And the only thing we can probably do is fill it with some stone for now and hope that it'll hold until we can do other things. It's just so deep, we don't have the equipment to dig that deep.
That drain line is part of the Cold War-era infrastructure left behind by the closure of the base in 1995. It's overbuilt and expensive. Town officials say it's reaching end of life and causing health and safety issues for residents and businesses there. Those include sinkholes that disrupt utilities and traffic, and abandoned asbestos pipes left buried in the ground. Heavy rains last year resulted in multiple sinkholes, including along major roadways. One cost more than $500,000 to fix. If you ask Town Supervisor Michael Cashman, one entity is to blame for these legacy issues.
It's the government that abdicated its responsibility, not the town, not the city, and not the North Country.
Local municipalities and organizations have worked hard to redevelop the base. It's home to an airport, multiple businesses and government agencies, and housing. In the wake of last year's storms, Cashman called on the federal government to do three things. The first, assign the town an Air Force engineering team to assess what's going on with the former base's systems. The idea is to help identify the remaining unknowns about what's underground there. Burnell says that would help the town come up with a more accurate estimate for how much it would cost to fix the infrastructure.
Initially, it was like $12 million, $13 million, but with the cost of everything today, I would say it's probably doubled.
That's a big burden for local taxpayers. So Cashman wants the federal government to help pick up the tab. And, bigger picture, add a provision to the National Defense Bill to provide for the perpetual care of old base infrastructure. Cashman claims there's been no significant action on any of these fronts. Speaking at a press conference mere feet from the newest sinkhole, he said the costs and the stakes are rising.
What is at stake is the health and safety, lost revenue for local businesses, longer emergency response times, and a stalled economy.
Aside from the money spent on recent sinkhole repairs, the town's invested more than $6 million into water and wastewater infrastructure at the old base. The city of Plattsburgh also absorbed a portion of the property when it closed. Mayor Wendell Hughes says, to date, the city has replaced about 6.5 miles of water lines.
We haven't got any federal assistance on any of this, and we have a ton of cast iron lines that are still in the ground that we're working at getting out of the ground, and we're just not getting any support.
Asked for comment, all three of the town's congressional representatives seemed open to providing assistance with the base's infrastructure needs. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand spoke at an event in Saranac Lake Monday.
Focused on that particular property has been something I've focused on for a while, and so we're going to be working with them on resources.
Ryan Martin, a spokesperson for Senator Chuck Schumer, said the senator is ready to help pursue available grant programs and facilitate meetings between the town and relevant federal agencies. A spokesman for Congresswoman Elise Stefanik said, quote, her team is in touch with the Air Force and is working to address the need. In the meantime, Cashman says the town is committed to using its resources to respond to issues at the base. It's applying for a state grant to help fund its own infrastructure study. He says that'll take time.
We're talking months, if not a year and a half or more, to being able to address some of these things. The federal government should be able to swiftly get behind us and start mobilizing some of these things.
Cashman says the worry is that infrastructure problems and failures will only get worse in the meantime. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio, Plattsburgh.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by the Saranac Project of Saranac Lake and Evan Veenstra of The Quay, Gananoque, Ontario. Have a great weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.